Thank you, Ms. Shetta. Do you prefer Kirsty or Ms. Shetta?
Kirsty is fine.
Thank you. Kirsty, where do you currently live?
Traer, Iowa?
And are you currently employed?
Yes.
How are you employed?
I work at JSA Development, downtown Waterloo.
Okay. Ms. Shetta, at some point in 2024, did you meet with law enforcement regarding this case?
Yes.
Did they tell you why they wanted to meet with you?
No.
Okay. Was it generally to discuss the death of Ryan Cooper?
Yes.
Did you know Ryan and Karina Cooper well?
Yes.
How long have you known Ryan and Karina?
Probably 8 to 10 years.
Okay. When did you first meet them?
When I moved to town.
Okay.
Traer.
About when did you move to Traer?
2007.
Okay. Who'd you meet first, Ryan or Karina?
Ryan.
Okay. How did you meet Ryan?
I was working at a place in Traer, and it was a hardware store, cell phone place, so he came in for parts
Okay.
and cell phone.
At some point thereafter, did you meet Karina?
Yes.
Okay. And did you and Karina and Ryan develop a sort of friend group, I guess, as it were?
Yes.
And who all was in this friend group that you all shared?
It would have been me and my husband, Carmen and Jamie, Matt and Regan, Mike, or Ike and Michelle, Cynthia and Barry. There was multiples.
What kind of things would you all do as a group?
Various things. We would go hang out at each other's places. A bunch of the friends had shops that we hung out at.
Was this a frequent type of activity or organization, or how would you characterize how often you all saw each other?
I would say, at least once a weekend, if not during the week also.
Did you all travel together?
Yes.
Okay. And take your friends and kids together on these
Correct.
trips? Okay. And you stated you knew Ryan first, correct?
Yes.
And how would you describe Ryan Cooper?
Man of little words.
Okay. Understand. Did you at some point work with Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, where was that at?
Aurora Agronomy.
Okay. What did you do there?
I was the office, took care of all the books, ordering.
How did you come to be in that position at Aurora?
Karina had worked there before, and she was pregnant with Cortland, and then she wanted to stay home. So then I applied for the job.
Did she kind of refer you to that job or let you know in advance, hey, I'm leaving this position?
Yeah, we had talked.
Okay. And were you and Karina at one point, were you pregnant at the same time?
Yes, with our first children.
Okay. You kind of bond over
second.
that? I'm sorry.
And our second.
And your second, okay. And did you all kind of bond over those
Yes.
kind of mutual pregnancies together? Would you say that you and Karina became good friends during that time?
Yes.
In this time that you knew Ryan and Karina together, what observations did you make about how Ryan would interact with Karina?
I guess if Karina was mad or yelling at him, his demeanor was always just to put his head down and take it.
How was he with his children?
Good.
You said at some point you and Karina also became good friends. How would you describe your relationship with Karina at the beginning?
Yeah, we had just a interest of bonding because we both did hair, and we kind of just became friends through that, and her starting to date Ryan. We would hang out as families together. We'd go on vacations together. We're just close with the whole Cooper family.
At some point, did you actually help out in her shop, her hair shop?
No, I'd never.
Did your friend group have kind of a group Snapchat?
Yes.
Okay. And was there one group Snapchat or were there several group
Several.
Snapchats? At some point, would you say that there was a shift in your relationship with Karina or Karina's relationship with the whole kind of extended friend group?
Yes.
Can you pinpoint about when that occurred?
Late fall of the year before Ryan was murdered.
So the fall of 2020, would that be about
Correct.
the time? What were some of the changes that you noticed?
Just pulling away from our friend group, not responding back to messages. We had heard some different things throughout town, and we just kind of started separating, I guess.
I guess that's kind of where I was going. Did something specific, or can you identify something specific that may have triggered that shift in the friend dynamic?
It would have been the rumors going around about her in Houston.
Before we get to that, I want to ask you a little bit about what you noticed between Karina and Ryan's dynamic. How would you describe Karina's behavior or towards Ryan?
Depending on a given day, some days were okay, some days were not, and her demeanor towards him was anger.
Can you recall any examples when you say some days were okay and then some days were not okay?
I mean, there was times where she would rant about him and talk about how, he was always off working and doing all this stuff, and she would just get angry about it. And at one of our conversations, she's like, we talked about, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember exactly her words, but it was talking about if she would leave, she would try to take him for everything he had.
Were some of these incidents in front of Ryan? Would he be around during some of these times that she would behave this way?
I mean, when she was mad at him, she would, some of them were not. There was an instance where we were all hanging out and she would refer to him as, because we worked together, me and Ryan, she would refer to me as his work wife and kind of belittle, I guess, Ryan, and be like, why don't you ask your work wife? Maybe she can do it better for you.
Did you take that as kind of a dig?
Yeah, correct.
How would Ryan respond?
Objection, Your Honor, your side.
Sustained.
Throughout Ryan's or when you and Karina were discussing things, did she ever express to you any resentment towards Ryan?
Often.
What were those resentments centered around?
That Ryan got everything, or the farm got everything.
Were they primarily financial?
Yes.
Did Karina seem concerned with her place with the finances of the farm?
Objection, Your Honor. That's speculation, and much of this is beyond the scope of the minutes, Judge.
I'm sorry, what was the last part? I didn't.
Beyond the scope of the minutes. Speculation beyond the scope of the minutes.
Council
May we
want to
approach?
approach? All right. After a brief bench conference, it's my understanding that the objection, to the extent that it's related, was based on exceeding the minutes, is withdrawn. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. Then the balance of the objection is overruled, and the witness may answer, assuming you remember the question.
No. Can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
Ms. O'Connell, can you repeat back the question?
Did Karina seem concerned with her place with the finances of the farm?
Yes, at one point there was a conversation about Ryan's ex-wife, Liz, and saying that Liz got everything, and if she stepped out, she would have nothing. She would not get anything
Thank you.
because everything was wrapped up in Cooper Farms.
Kirsty, did you know Houston Danker?
Yes.
How did you know him?
He is a couple years younger than my son, my oldest son, so he was a Traer boy, and
So you knew him from around town?
yes.
At some point, did you learn that Karina and Houston were engaged in some sort of relationship?
Objection, Your Honor. Relies on hearsay.
Overruled. You can answer.
Yes, I did.
How did you find out about this relationship?
We were at a friend's house, and he wound up showing up there in the late fall
And when you say
of 2020,
who are you referring to?
Houston.
Okay.
And we had heard throughout the day that they were texting each other and snapping each other back and forth. And when he got to the house, we took his phone and seen all the messages.
Did you actually see these messages yourself?
Her Snapchat handle was Casey with a heart, and I seen I love you and a picture above.
Where were you when you saw these messages?
I was at Pam Ewald's house.
What did the messages suggest to you was the nature of Houston and Karina's relationship?
A sexual relationship, an affair.
Did you ever confront Karina about those messages?
I did not. She had sent me a message the next morning.
The message that she sent you the next morning, what did it say?
Paraphrasing, to the fact of, can you believe the rumors going around that me and Houston, I just did not respond because at that point there was so many things prior to that that just solidified to me that she was lying.
Did she ever admit to you that she was having a relationship or an affair with Houston?
No.
Are you aware personally if at some point Ryan Cooper became aware of the relationship between Karina and Houston?
Yes.
How are you aware of that?
Through one of the guys I worked with at Aurora.
So someone else told you that?
Yes.
Do you recall about when that occurred?
Spring.
Would have been spring of
Spring of
2021,
Yeah.
shortly before Ryan was killed.
Yeah, I'd say anywhere from that March, April-ish.
Okay. In the days and weeks leading up to Ryan's death, did you notice anything unusual or what you would describe as unusual about Karina's behavior?
Yes.
What did you notice?
2 days before his murder, we had all of our Snapchat group friend. Me and Carmen had gone down to a show in Dallas, Texas for our business. And when we landed and got to the airport, we were just scrolling through our Snapchats, and all of a sudden it said Karina had left the group, and we were going through the rest of them, just normal, and she wound up going back, leaving all of the groups that we were ever a part of.
And can you just clarify, who is Carmen?
Carmen is a part of the friend group and a business partner of mine. Carmen Earhart.
Did the ladies in the group kind of have a separate group that was apart from the full families of groups?
Yeah, we had multiple different
Okay.
groups.
Did you guys have kind of a
We had a
term-
golf group.
Okay, a golf group.
We had a TCMW group. I mean, we had them named all sorts of different things.
Okay. When you say the TCFW, was that the Tama County Housewives group?
Yes.
Okay. And so you're saying about 2 days before Ryan was killed, Karina just left all of the Snapchat groups. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did she give you a reason for exiting those groups?
Nope, I just remember in our golf group, there was a tournament on that Wednesday. All of us girls had started talking about getting a group together for golf on that Wednesday, like on that Monday prior. And I told the girls I was out because we were flying out. Everybody else in the group was talking to get their group. And then Karina just never responded. She just,
I want to switch gears just a bit. Are you a gun owner, Kirsty?
yes,
Okay. And what kind of firearm do you have?
a Ruger 9.
Okay. Did you ever talk to Karina about guns or firearms in general?
Yes, we had one conversation that I recall shortly after we got our permit to carries, which is,
What types of guns did you and Karina talk about specifically, if any?
we talked about how I shot my Ruger 9 and I didn't like the kickback, that it kicked back really bad. And then I had shot my mother-in-law's baby 22 and that it was just like so smooth. And just how the correspondence of that was so different. And then she said the same thing. She's like, I just got a 22 as well, like, and it shoots so smooth. I understand what you're talking about. You know, like we just kind of talked about that.
So she described to you how the 22 shot as well.
Yes.
Do you remember about when that conversation occurred?
I would have got my permit to carry in 2018, December, so it would have been late winter going into January, February when we were hanging out.
Okay. So well before Ryan is killed, you guys are having pretty in-depth conversations about firearms and the different characteristics of the firearms you had, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions. The defense may have some questions for you.
Mr. Hawbaker?
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
So you became good friends with Ms. Cooper, is that right?
Yes,
Okay. And you were good friends for quite a long time, fair?
fair.
And even during that time that she might have yelled at Ryan or had good days or bad days, you remained her friend?
Correct.
Okay. And that behavior was nothing that was shocking or concerning to you. I'm assuming you chalked that up as just sort of the normal dynamics of a relationship.
At points, yes.
Yeah, okay. And the friend group that you were having, these snaps and things like that, did law enforcement ever seize your phone to verify the Snapchat conversations?
No.
Okay. But those conversations and whether or not Ms. Cooper left the group and things like that, presumably she did that from her phone?
Yes, she would have to remove herself from the group.
And all the time that you saw Ms. Cooper get angry at Ryan or anything like that, you never saw any act of violence by Ms. Cooper towards Ryan, correct?
It was not physical, verbal.
Never hitting, never smacking, nothing like that?
No.
Yeah. Or threats of physical harm, threats to shoot him or anything like that, never said that?
No.
This golf tournament that you were talking about, was Karina even invited to that?
She signed up on her own.
The guns that you were talking about, those are handguns, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. No talk about rifles or long guns?
No.
And the permit to carry, you ultimately got your permit to carry?
Yes.
And with that permit to carry, does that involve some education on your part?
Yes.
You have to learn some things.
Yes.
Are you aware that there are resources online that can provide you with that information?
I never looked into that, no.
Okay. Courses on guns, things like that?
No.
So you wouldn't know if Karina was taking advantage of those online resources when she was getting her permit?
I do not.
That information about the 22 being smooth, did you ever witness Ms. Cooper shoot that gun?
I did not.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any redirect?
Just briefly. Kirsty, were there points or incidences where you thought Karina's behavior towards Ryan was not normal or not appropriate?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Anything further, Mr. Hawbaker?
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Mr. Kodiaga, is the state prepared to call its next witness?
The state calls Carmen Earhart.
If anybody wants to stand up and stretch while we're waiting for the witness to come on in, feel free. I'm going to. All right, good morning, ma'am. If you want to go ahead and have a seat right there, that'd be great. And you can adjust that microphone however it best suits you. So first thing I'm going to do, ma'am, is swear you in. If you please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay. And then for the record, can you please give me your first name and your last name and spell them both for us, please?
Yes, it's Carmen Earhart. First name Carmen, last name Erhardt.
All right. Mr. Kodiaga.
Thank you. Still morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Stated your name. Can you tell us where you currently reside?
I live in Traer, Iowa.
Again, where?
Traer,
Traer.
Iowa. Yep.
And is this a community you've lived in for a long time?
Yes. I lived there since I've been married for 20 plus years.
Do you know a person by the name of Ryan Cooper?
Yes, I do.
How do you know Ryan Cooper?
I have known him got to know him very well through all the stuff that we did. Being a small town, you're going to know people, but as far as Ryan, we do things like such as going motorcycling, snowmobiling. We take vacations, stuff together, but have just known him more through my husband is how I got to know him.
What's your husband's name?
Jamie.
So you knew Ryan through Jamie.
Yes.
Fair to say you and the Coopers were family friends?
Yes, we did. I knew Ryan before I knew Karina, but once they got together, we got starting doing things such as when we started motorcycling and we'd go on motorcycling trips. We'd go on, we have a place in Wisconsin, and they would go, and for a short time that they had a camper up at that location in which we would share and spend weekends and holidays and stuff too at.
Do you know someone by the name of Karina Cooper?
Yes, I do.
Do you see that person in this courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify that person by where she's seated or an item of her clothing?
She's sitting over to my right with a sweater on.
Did the record reflect identification?
The record so reflects.
So you've testified you knew Karina through Ryan. Were your families pretty close?
We were, like I said, we did a lot of things together, from just vacationing or times, but I got to know her very well, became a good friend of hers. She would do my hair.
So we've had testimony that she used to cut hair and do hair?
Yes,
Okay, and that was at their home in Traer.
yes.
At some point in the year leading up to Ryan's death, does the nature of the friendship change?
It does. We had a little bit of falling out. I would say that the friendship wasn't as close as it had been in the past.
Now, as someone who was around both Karina Cooper and Ryan Cooper, were there occasions that you and your husband and the Coopers would go out to socialize, maybe to drink or hang out?
Yes, it was quite frequent, yeah.
During these occasions, did you chance to notice or observe moments of hostility exhibited towards Ryan Cooper by Karina Cooper?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what issues would make Karina be hostile towards Ryan?
It would be different times, like arguments where she would just get very upset with him. She would, sometimes that was even directed to other people, Jen, just him, but she would just, for whatever reason, they would be arguing and she would get very loud and would argue in person with them.
Would she get very mean when she was upset with Ryan?
Yes, I mean, you could physically tell she was very upset and yell at that with him.
Agitated?
I'm sorry.
Agitated.
One of the prime example would be is I know that we were at a location, we've been out, she was arguing with Ryan. Another friend tried to step in and kind of like dissolve the situation. She even grabbed that person by the hair and ripped them back out of the argument. So you could physically tell that she was very upset. As far as the conversation, I don't know what was going on, but it was very blatant. You could see that she was not happy with them.
Now, were there conflict that you observed involving money or finances?
There's been conflict, yeah. We've personally had some conversations where she's shared some of what she may have felt like he was getting, and as far as what her money would go towards and what she would spend on. There would be conversations as far as the farm setup. Like I said, we spent a lot of time together. She was around my family. Our family farms, as far as how they're set up, were pretty similar, so I was familiar with how things were.
Can you tell the jury more about that?
Some of them would be the conversations we had would be where she would be upset, where she felt like if he wanted to buy a side-by-side, he would get the side-by-side. He wanted the truck, he got the truck, but her money, she would have to, that she was making, she would have to spend that on the food, the kids, and that, so she wouldn't get, but then she would also in the same breath state that if she, Ryan had to buy his own side-by-side, but Cooper's Farms would buy Aaron the side-by-side and stuff, so.
So, as regard the Cooper's farm, was it your observation or understanding that she knew how money was controlled in terms of the Cooper farm controlling some of the money that Ryan had access to?
Yes, I mean, in our and just our conversations to each other, yeah, she had a good understanding how it is, and just even, like I said, with the family farms being set up pretty similar, and knowing how those corporate farms work, she knew where the money came from.
Likewise, because your family had the same kind of setup,
Yes.
where the corporate farming family was in charge of the finances of the
Yes.
expenditure.
As far as, yep.
At some point, do you become aware of the defendant, Karina Cooper, having an affair with someone named Houston Denker?
At first, it was just hearsay as far as rumors. But the day I really became very well aware of it is we had been actually out an evening at Larry's in Lincoln, and we had all been, Ryan, Karina, Jamie and I had been there. We had actually left earlier before the bar closed and went home. We were already in bed asleep once we got a phone call, which actually was Ryan calling Jamie in the middle of the night, which was that was unusual. In fact, I think it was probably the first time we ever got a phone call that late at night from him. So my husband answered it, afraid that like something had happened, and so he picked up the phone and he was talking to him. Ryan proceeds to tell Jamie that,
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained.
So there was a phone call Ryan makes at night. That phone call, is that how you became aware of an affair?
yes,
Did you ever personally confront Karina about the affair with Houston Dinker?
I didn't for a few different reasons.
Okay.
One
Objection,
of,
Your Honor, relevance.
Sustained.
Now, so the answer to your question is you didn't confront Karina. Fair enough.
I did not know.
Let's talk about your knowledge of firearms and Karina's knowledge of firearms. Did you attend a class or situation where you would have been with Karina and she would have been around firearms?
Yes, I took a concealed weapons permit class, which was actually held at Ryan and Karina's home, in the shop at their home.
So there was a class that you took in Karina's and Ryan Cooper's home.
At the shop, yes.
From your understanding and from your relationship that you've talked broadly about that stretches across various years, was your observation that Karina had a fair good knowledge of firearms?
Yes, my husband had given me a gun for a Christmas gift. And with that, we've had conversations about that. We've talked about, because at times when I've actually shot the gun, and just discussion about the gun as far as the one he had given me, a little bit of my comfort level, and we talked back and forth about that. In that, just in our general conversations, when I was given that gift, the gun for as a gift, she had made comments about how, my husband gets me a gun, Ryan, why don't you get me something like that? We've just in general talked about the fact that one of the reasons I took a concealed weapons permit is because any vehicle, any of our friend groups, no matter if it's ours, anybody's, there's typically a gun that's concealed in there. So the properly covered, we took that. Like I said, I've talked to, as far as shooting it, be at the comfort level of it, having them, being around them. We've had conversations. I've never, will honestly physically say that I can recall or remember.
Objection, Your Honor, narrative.
Sustained.
So fair enough that she and you had been around firearms in many occasions and had
Yes.
discussed firearms in more than one sitting.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, let's talk about in the time leading, in the months or the period, the approximate period leading to Ryan's killing, was there some behavior changes that you noticed from Karina Cooper?
Yes, there was. Pulling out of friend groups, things that we did constantly together, no longer being involved in those. A great amount of weight loss that I even questioned and even asked her, and that's even in writing somewhere.
So withdrawal from your friend group and also physical in terms of how,
Yep.
experiencing what you observed as some loss Weight loss?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
Mr. Hawbaker?
Morning, ma'am. How long were you friends with Miss Cooper?
We would have became friends closer to when we started motorcycling together, so it would have been roughly around a little bit before, I would say closer to after they'd been married.
And it occurs to me that when you say we were out or we were at a place, 9 times out of 10, you guys were at a bar or something like that. Is that right?
It would be boating, it would be on snowmobiles, it'd be, yep,
There were times to get together for social drinking.
yes,
Okay. And that's oftentimes when you would witness Miss Cooper get louder or upset or things like that, right?
it could have been, yes,
Was there some belief that that might have been related to alcohol?
there could be, yeah.
Yeah. And when she was upset, it could be about any number of things, not necessarily finances. It could just be something on that day. Fair? Yes?
Yes, sorry.
All right. So the finances weren't exactly a theme when she was upset. There are a lot of things that would make her upset. Fair?
Yep,
Okay. Now, my understanding is that you're familiar with family farms.
yes,
You're familiar because of your marriage, I assume, with how the LLCs work and that sort of thing?
it's on my side of the family farm.
It's on your side of the
Yep.
family farm. So you have that familiarity,
Yes,
and you shared that familiarity with Miss Cooper.
yep,
Okay. Not unusual.
nope,
The discussion and with firearms, was it your understanding that the husbands or people were getting you and Miss Cooper a handgun, and in particular wanted to make sure that you had a permit to carry because anybody could be in a car with a gun in it and people didn't want to get in trouble?
At the original, when we got that was the main, because there was understanding of it, but then as far as wanting to carry one myself, and later and being able to have my own at my own time, yep.
Yeah. But as far as you and Miss Cooper, the idea that you needed a permit to carry was related to the fact that, there could be a shotgun in the car or something like that out on the farm, and the husbands didn't want people to get in trouble for driving those cars. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And when you talked about guns, that was always about handguns, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that was what you had and presumably what Ms. Cooper was asking for when she made the comment to Ryan, fair?
Yep.
No talk about long guns or rifles or that sort of thing, right?
We've talked about shooting as far as guns, but I mean, as far as the actual guns they gave us would have been just regular guns, handguns.
Handguns, right? Nothing further. Thank you.
Yep.
Any redirect, Mr. Kodiaga?
You've talked about shooting different types of guns and being around guns together, correct?
Yep.
Which involves a wide array of guns, from long guns to handguns.
Correct.
Fair enough to you asked how long you've known Karina and Ryan. You said from when they were married, that's over a decade ago, correct?
Correct.
So you have a pretty good window into their relationship.
Yes.
And that window into their relationship, your testimony to this jury, is she will be upset at him for many reasons, including finances.
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Hawbaker?
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You may step down.
Leroy Bradley, Leroy, Bradley.
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Do you prefer Leroy or Mr. Bradley?
Leroy's fine.
Okay, thank you. Leroy, where do you currently live?
Traer, Iowa.
What's your occupation?
An agronomist for Aurora Agronomy.
What's agronomist do? What do you do?
Sell chemical and manage fields for crops.
Okay. And do you know Ryan and Karina Cooper?
Yes.
How do you know Ryan and Karina?
Known Ryan my whole life and Karina since I was young. And I worked with Ryan on a daily basis, working through his farm.
How would you describe your relationship with Ryan?
Close.
Okay.
Good friends.
Did you know Ryan and Karina throughout their marriage?
Yes.
Okay. Leroy, at some point prior to Ryan being killed, did you and Ryan talk about firearms?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall Ryan talking with you about purchasing firearms for Karina?
Yes.
Do you recall what type of firearm he discussed purchasing?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained?
You recall him discussing purchasing firearms, correct?
Correct.
Did he tell you why he was purchasing a firearm?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained?
It just goes to state of mind, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Not for the... Did Ryan bring a firearm to show to you?
Yes.
What kind of firearm did he bring to show to you?
22 pistol.
Did he mention whether he had any other firearms at that time?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained?
Did he show you the firearm that he brought?
Yes.
Were you aware of any firearms that were purchased for Karina Cooper?
Yeah, 380, I believe.
Were any other firearms purchased for Karina Cooper?
He purchased.
Objection, Your Honor, this relies on hearsay.
Overruled. You can answer.
He purchased the 22 pistol to teach her how to shoot before he used the 380, or had her shoot the 380.
Were you personally familiar, did you have a personal relationship with Karina Cooper?
Yes.
And during your time knowing Karina and Ryan, were you aware of any, or did you become aware of any conflicts in their relationship?
Outside of the affair he thought she was having, or, I mean, they would, when she would drink, they would argue.
Okay. What kinds of things would they argue about?
Pretty much anything, if she, you know.
Do you recall if they argued about finances?
I know that there was some time there when Karina had run up some credit card bills that the family farm paid for, so I know that there was some.
How did you know this?
Ryan told me.
Did you and Ryan also discuss a possible affair between Houston Danker and Karina?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes, the spring of 21.
So just before Ryan was killed?
Yes, it would have been March or April there.
Do you know or have any knowledge of whether Ryan confronted Karina about that affair?
I know yes, he told me he had confronted
Objection, Your
her.
Honor, hearsay. I move to strike the answer.
Sustained, the answer will be stricken, and the jury shall disregard whatever it heard with respect to the answer.
Did you observe any behavior exhibited by Karina towards Ryan?
Not physically, but she would verbally go after him pretty hard.
When you say she would verbally go after him, what would that mean, or what would that look like?
Oh, I mean, just verbally calling him names or saying he's stupid, or, I mean, just when she started drinking, she could get pretty ornery.
How would Ryan respond?
Usually just get quiet.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Ms. Watt, cross-examination.
No questions, thank you.
Right, thank you, sir. You may step down. Mr. Ringel, looks like you've got the mic now. Is the state prepared to call the next witness?
Yes, Judge, thank you. The state would call Teresa McBride.
Yep. Good afternoon, ma'am. Have you come on up here to my far left, if you would? That chair right there. Okay. Yep, set your purse down. Go ahead and have a seat. And then that microphone is on. You can adjust it kind of however you'd like, ma'am. Okay. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to swear you in, so I'm going to ask that you raise your right hand. So, ma'am, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
I do.
Okay. And next thing, can you just give us your first name and your last name and spell them for us, please?
Sure. Teresa McBride, Teresa McBride.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ringel.
Good afternoon, Ms. McBride. How are you?
I'm good.
I'm going to ask you to pull that microphone just a little bit closer to you.
Sure. Is that better?
Perfect. Thank you. Where do you live, Ms. McBride?
North of Independence?
Is that close to Traer or the Traer community?
No.
Okay.
About an hour and 15 minutes.
All right. Did you live in or around Traer around 2021?
Yes, I did. I lived in Traer from 2019 until the fall of 2023.
Did you know Karina and Ryan Cooper?
Yes, I did.
How did you know them?
I met them through Brian Morrison, who I was dating at the time.
What's the nature of your relationship with Ryan and Karina?
They were friends of Brian's, and they became friends of mine.
So when you say you're friends, what kind of stuff were you guys doing? Could you describe the relationship?
Oh, we went on, we did a lot of camping together, went up north and went snowmobiling, get together in the shop for social gatherings, either at their place or other friends in Traer area.
How often?
Pretty on a regular basis. We were somewhere either some night during the week or maybe throughout the weekends. Sometime, depending on the time of the season, if it was harvest or planting, we may not see Ryan as much and Karina, but we usually tried to get together.
Because presumably Ryan was busy with work in the fields, is that correct?
Yes.
Were you close with Karina?
We had gotten close throughout the years, probably not as close as some of the other friends in the area because I was kind of a transplant.
Okay, what do you mean by that, you were a transplant?
I wasn't originally from there. I grew up in the Independence area, and then when Brian and I started dating, I moved to that location in 2019.
You talked a little bit about the different things you would do together. It sounds like you were seeing them at least once a week, maybe a little bit more, going on some trips. How long would you say that relationship lasted?
I would say probably up until maybe the spring of 2021, sorry. Then things kind of started to fizzle away. We didn't get together as much, it seemed like. But then after Ryan's passing, We started getting together a little bit more frequently. We were doing some girl trip things, but then that kind of phased away as well too once I left.
So you were spending some time with Karina following Ryan's death, right?
Yes.
When you're spending time, it sounds like with both Ryan and Karina, did you have an opportunity to observe their relationship and their relationship dynamic?
Yes.
How would you describe that relationship dynamic?
They had good and not so good times.
And did you ever observe any instances in which Karina and Ryan argued?
Several.
When you say several, what do you mean?
Well, it seemed like a lot of times when we would go camping, something would get said or something wouldn't get done, and she would get upset and it would cause a fight. Or if we were at someone's shop or at their shop, something would get said, and I don't know what those things were, but it seemed like she might get a little upset more than you would expect someone to get upset.
Okay. And you mentioned, and some other people have mentioned, getting together in people's shops. What does that mean?
Well, it was kind of a Traer thing, I guess. Every shop had a bar.
Okay.
And so, you just get together, for a couple of cocktails or drinks just to see how everybody's week's going, or if people are having a bad day, hey, let's get together and have a couple. It was just a common thing.
And so when you say a shop, do you mean an outbuilding on a farm property typically?
Not necessarily on a farm property, but there was some in town. People had nice, glamorous shops or garages or,
Okay.
or but it could be on both a farm or in town.
All right. So you said that occasionally you would see Karina Cooper getting upset with Ryan, perhaps more than you would expect. What was Ryan's reaction typically, if there was a typical reaction?
He would just kind of back away. He didn't really engage much, would put his head down or maybe just leave just because he didn't want to have to deal with the confrontation.
So you knew Ryan pretty well. How would you describe his personality generally?
He'd give you the shirt off his back if that was all he had left.
Did you or do you know someone by the name of Houston Danker?
I know of him. I wasn't close with him.
At some point, did you become aware of an affair between Houston Danker and Karina Cooper?
I heard a lot of talk of it.
Did you have any personal knowledge of that?
No.
Ryan was killed in June of 2021. Did you see any changes or note any changes in Karina's behavior leading up to Ryan's death?
She kind of got a little quieter, maybe wasn't getting involved with activities, losing a lot of weight to the point where it was almost concerning, like maybe there was some sort of underlying health issue. Just not the Karina I once knew.
You had stated that you observed a number of different potential arguments during which Karina would yell at Ryan, and Ryan's reaction was essentially calm. Were you aware of the topics or the nature of those disagreements or what was upsetting her?
I think a lot of it came down to money. Karina liked to redecorate and remodel, and I think that a lot of times she needed some of Ryan's help financially to do those things, and Ryan was kind of the voice of reason. Is it something that we really need to do right now? Is it something that can wait? Or, how much is it going to cost? So he was always trying to do the analytics of whatever endeavor she was taking on.
So when that would happen, and the conversations were about money, there were these sort of, as you said, Ryan's reaction was somewhat analytical. What was her reaction to his analysis?
A lot of times she'd get upset because he didn't agree with the projects that she wanted to tackle.
And what did that look like when she got upset about those types of things?
Sometimes she would yell at him and say things about why she couldn't have the money or that she hated him, and then that was usually time to leave. Like if we were around that environment, that was a sign to go.
How would you characterize how you were feeling then in response to what you were observing?
How I was feeling?
Yes.
Uncomfortable.
Did it seem funny to you or like joking around?
Well, it got to the point where she made those comments so frequently that a lot of us just took it with a grain of salt. It's like, oh, it's Karina. We didn't take it out of context.
Okay. Nonetheless, you said, if I understand correctly, that it would reach a point where you were uncomfortable and it was time to go. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between those two things that you just described? How did you know when it was time to go?
Well, when she started yelling at Ryan and would say things like she hated him and, just vulgar stuff towards him, it just became uncomfortable and no fun to be around.
How often did you see her yelling at Ryan in that way?
More so when we'd been probably drinking. And it just depended on the time of the year, if we were around them.
You said it happened so often that it became just sort of normal.
Yes.
Did you ever see her or hear her make any threats towards Ryan?
Yes, I did.
How many times?
Well, the one that stands out in my mind is the night that she yelled at him and said that she hated him and would shoot him in the face.
When she yelled at him and said she would shoot him in the face, how would you characterize her behavior in the way that she said it?
Well, at that point, we're like, oh boy, time to go. We've all had enough. And so, and like before, didn't take it out of context. It was just Karina getting angry, and we just decided it was time to leave.
Is that in fact what you did?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Judge.
Ms. Watt, cross-examination.
Thank you. We've heard a lot of testimony about the times that Ryan and Karina would fight. I have to imagine there were good times.
Yes, there were.
Okay.
Yes.
So you guys did have a lot of fun together over the years.
Yes.
And I thought did some people or yourself call her Karen when she was drinking?
I don't know that I ever called her Karen. I just knew better.
Okay.
But yes, I had heard that, yes.
Okay. So people in the friend group were well aware that Karina can be not the nicest person sometimes, and that was her personality.
Yes.
Okay. And it sounds like Ryan, sometimes opposites. Ryan's more the non-confrontational kind.
Yes.
Now, you've testified today that you felt like sometimes Karina would go over the top, and I understand that. But do you remember when we talked in April of 2024 in a different room?
Yes.
And do you recall at that time saying that you didn't think it was anything normal couples don't do?
I do recall saying that, yes. But since then, my mind has been like circling back, like, are there things that I missed or that I didn't say, because this was not on my bucket list to be in this situation.
Right.
And so there were times that, I thought, I didn't understand why she got so angry over the little things. Mm-hmm. But maybe that is her personality. It's just not mine.
Okay. Yes, I think you also did say that she might yell and you wouldn't yell the same way because you're a bit softer.
A lot, yes. Yes.
I also understand that hindsight is 20/20, and it's easy sometimes to look back at a situation through a different lens. Mm-hmm. Fair?
Yes.
The comment about, find it back here. Let me be clear. Did you ever see Karina act violent towards Ryan, though?
Not physically.
Right. Okay. So lots of yelling.
Lots of yelling, yes.
And then the comment of, I should shoot you in the face. Do you know when that happened?
Well, I was going back in the old photo bank, and there was a picture taken of Cortland and I. And I'm not 100% positive, but that was taken back in October of 2018.
Okay.
And I am almost positive it was the same night. I don't know the exact night, but I know Ryan was around, and it was early to mid-evening, so I knew they weren't out during harvest season.
Okay.
Or something had happened that they couldn't be out harvesting. So I know it was that certain time of the year.
I understand. So, but regardless, you think that that comment was made in 2018 then?
Yes.
All right. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Mr. Engel, any redirect?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You may step down. And Mr. Morrison, you can adjust that microphone however you'd like.
Hello?
Yep, that works. So first thing I'm going to do, sir, is swear you in. If you please raise your right hand. Mr. Morrison, sir, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
True, I do.
All right, and then just for the record, sir, can you give us your first name and your last name and spell them for us?
Brian Morrison, Brian Morrison.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Codiaga, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Judge. Sir, you've stated your name. You're Mr. Morrison, correct?
Correct.
Where do you currently live? Where do you currently reside at?
I live in Traer, same place I've been most of my life.
Okay. So you've lived in Traer most of your life?
Yes.
Okay. And that's in Tama County?
Correct.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a retired farmer and I drive semi now, hauling pork products.
How long have you been a farmer and when did you start driving semis?
My whole life I farmed. I started farming on my own in 1990, until 2019. Then I started driving semi.
Do you know a person, someone who used to be called Ryan Cooper?
Yes.
How do you know Ryan?
His dad and my dad were good friends in high school. Then they grew up together. And then he was younger than I was, so I really didn't meet him until, we didn't start running around until about 2008, 2009. We started farming together and we used equipment together.
When you started farming together, did you become close friends, someone you could call a friend? And
Oh,
see
yes.
often?
Yes.
How would you describe your relationship?
He is my best friend.
Would you see him often?
Yeah. Yes.
Now, you said he was a farmer. What did he farm?
He farmed?
Yeah, what?
He farmed corn, soybeans, cattle.
And did he also use trucks and ride semi-trucks?
Yes.
So sometimes he would be on his semi-truck.
Yep, it was part of the cattle business, hauled cattle, feed, and feed.
So when he would use the semi-truck, he would be hauling cattle feed or something related to the farm.
Correct.
Did you do social things together with Ryan Cooper other than farming?
Yes. A lot of family events, kids' birthdays. We camped together, motorcycled together, snowmobile together.
Do you know Karina Cooper?
Yes.
Is that person you've called Karina Cooper in this courtroom today?
Yes.
Will you identify her for the jury?
She's to my right. Long brunette hair.
Fair enough to say it's very difficult for you to testify here today.
Yes.
Is that because of the nature of relationship that you had with Ryan and Karina Cooper?
Correct.
The lady who just testified before you, Ms. McBride, do you know her?
Yes.
Can you tell us the relationship that you had with Ms. McBride?
We dated for 6 years.
So Teresa McBride, you, Karina, and Ryan were people who were close together in a circle.
Correct.
Can you briefly tell us what your relationship with Karina Cooper was like?
We We had a very good relationship. I mean, she was like my sister. Closer.
Considered a friend,
Right.
just like you loved Brian as someone who was your best friend, you automatically then loved someone that he was in a
Yes.
relationship with.
Yes.
When you were together, as you've indicated, there were social activities you did together. Did that include drinking and partying together?
Yeah.
Were there changes or in that relationship in some of these occasions in terms of what you'll observe between Ryan and Karina?
I guess drinking can change anybody's attitude, but yes, if that's where we're going, yes.
Some of those times, will she be mean to Ryan Cooper? Will Karina be mean to Ryan Cooper?
She would get a bit upset and be upset with him at times, yes.
When she was upset at him, were there occasions she would make threats at him?
Yes.
Do you recall some threats that you were present that she made when you were there?
There was times in general relationships, I hate you, I wish you were dead. Obviously, the big one you're thinking of is we were in his shop one night, and she said I could shoot you in the face, which was surprising.
So, in terms of what she said, it wasn't the same as other threats of just I hate you. There's something more venomous in what she said.
I would take the previous ones as relationship fights, but yeah, then the latter was more surprising.
Do you recall what was financial issues a tension in their relationship?
Were there financial issues in their relationship?
Yeah, was finances causing a tension between them? Did you understand my question?
There were issues, but I don't know if it caused them issues. I mean, there was financial problems at times, but I don't remember them. I don't know if it was just something he had to do to fix the current situation and move on.
Did you know Karina to own any firearms?
To own any firearms? Yes.
At some point in the time leading to his killing, did Ryan express some concerns and hand you some documents and express some concerns that if he was not alive?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Overruled. You can answer. Actually, you already
Yes.
did, I believe.
May I- Do you remember what Ryan expressed to you?
We were riding in a pickup, and he says, if something happens, then these documents are here. But after the fact, it took me a long time to remember that.
So he gave you some documents.
He did not give them to me. He told me where they were at.
He indicated to you some documents that he wanted you to
Correct.
be
Aware of.
aware of if he was no longer there.
Right.
may.
Now, you talked about being aware that Karina Cooper had knowledge of firearms, correct?
Correct.
There were some concealed carry classes that were either being done at the farm that they lived in, correct?
Like the concealed carry classes?
Yeah.
Yes, they were. We had done those at his shop there at their residence.
Did you see Karina Cooper fire a firearm in those classes?
Yes, in order to get your Florida permit, you had to fire a gun safely. And I saw her do that.
Did you become aware of tension in their relationship that involved Houston Denker?
Yes.
At some point after Ryan became aware of an affair, did you notice any changes in Karina's behavior?
I guess we weren't doing as much together at the time, which that was marital issues they needed to work out. So we just didn't discuss it as much. If he wanted to talk about it, we talked about it. If he didn't, I didn't push it.
So at some time you started withdrawing, or the relationship started not being as close as it was before?
Correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
Ms. Watt, any questions?
Thank you. So you mentioned him talking about some documents, and then I thought I heard you say, I didn't remember that for some time. Did you mean that you just remembered that he told you these things? What were you trying to say?
After he was killed, yeah, it was just, my mind was a mess, and I couldn't remember certain things that pertained.
Okay.
It just wasn't in my front memory
Okay.
like it was supposed to be.
Okay. I took it to mean that you just remembered this within the last 6 months. Did I misunderstand you then?
I remembered it a couple months after he had been killed.
All right. When did he have that conversation with you?
Late in the fall, the year before.
So 2020, you think?
I believe so, yes.
The comment about, I'm going to shoot you, was Teresa there for that?
Yes.
Okay. So if she thinks it was around 2018, does that sound right to you?
No.
Okay. When do you think it happened?
The fall of 20.
Okay. Did you ever witness Karina be violent towards Ryan?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember talking to me I guess you mean you saw her be physically violent towards him?
Can't say it was physical. She would get verbally
Okay.
mad at him
Okay,
to where it was, yeah.
all right. And I understand that we're focusing a lot on the bad times in this courtroom, but I imagine that you witnessed good times between Karina and Ryan as well,
Yes,
and you guys all had fun together.
we did.
And I understand you loved them both at one time, right?
Yes,
And I understand that sometimes when Karina was drinking, a different side of her would come out.
at times, yes.
And did you have a name for her?
We called her Karen.
Karen? I do not have any other questions, thank you.
Any redirect?
The name Karen was not a term of endearment, was it?
Say that again, please.
The name Karen was not a term of endearment, was it?
I'm not understanding the last part. The name Karen, what?
It wasn't a term that you were calling her because it was a love term or a nice name to call her, was it?
It was just a different personality, if you will.
So when you called her Karen, it's because she was being mean and not being nice.
Ornery. Defensive, yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Any further?
I mean, just to be fair, though, you said she was our Karen, right? Of the group?
Of the group, yes.
Loved.
Yes.
Right. No other questions?
All right. Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Michelle Wilson, MICHELLEWILSON.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Ringel.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi,
You're Ryan Cooper's sister, correct?
that's correct.
Older or younger?
Older,
How much older are you than Ryan?
10 years.
Okay. How are you currently employed?
Yes, I am.
How are you employed?
I am employed by Cooper Farms, Inc. as the accountant, bookkeeper.
So as the accountant for Cooper Farms, what are you doing?
I pay the bills, handle all the bank transactions, payroll, loan payments, expenses, all that kind of thing.
Pretty well familiar then with the structure and finances of Cooper Farms.
Yes.
Could you explain for us what Cooper Farms is? Is that Cooper Farms Incorporated?
It is a corporation. Yep, farm corporation.
Okay. Could you just explain the structure of Cooper Farms?
It is a family farm business. It's been in the family for several generations. We have we own land and farm that with corn and bean crops. We also do some trucking. We also have livestock and invest in livestock as well.
So the different things that you just discussed, there's obviously some land, there's some cattle, there's trucks, farm equipment as well.
Yep, farm equipment, land.
And is that all owned then by Cooper Farms?
The land is partially owned directly by my father. The farm corporation owns land. The majority, safe to say, all of the equipment is owned by the corporation. There's also a few acreages that are with homes that are owned by my dad as well.
Approximately how many homes?
There's 4 homes.
Would that include 1846 K Avenue where Ryan and Karina Cooper had been
It does,
living
yep.
in 2021?
Yep.
We've heard some testimony that Ryan Cooper and Aaron Cooper were farming some land together. Who owned that land to your knowledge?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yes,
The noise.
Ryan and Aaron. Are you having difficulty hearing me?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a hum from the construction outside that
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
My question was, Ryan and Aaron, we have heard testimony that they were farming some land together.
Uh-huh.
To your knowledge, who owned that land?
My father owns that land.
Based on your position with Cooper Farms, did you have some sense of Ryan's and Karina's finances?
Not necessarily, from observations, but I never was involved directly in preparing tax returns or financial statements or any of that.
And we've heard some testimony that they owned a couple of trucks and maybe one or two pieces of farm equipment. To your knowledge, did they own anything else, such as farmland, other properties, anything like that?
I had no knowledge of farmland that they would have owned. My brother and I have since become administrators of Ryan's estate, and through that, based on paperwork there was no land, very little, just a couple small pieces of farm equipment, his vehicle, and some personal assets.
Do you remember the approximate value of, you said, a couple pieces of farm equipment and a couple of personal vehicles, the rough value of those items?
Like the entire estate as a whole, what they valued the assets at, or just?
Those items that I just mentioned.
Yeah. Net with expenses and outstanding loans and whatnot, $200,000.
We've also heard some testimony that Ryan was involved in farming. Obviously, we just talked about the fact that he and Aaron were farming some land. You mentioned that trucking was a component of what Cooper Farms does. To your knowledge, was Ryan Cooper involved in trucking?
Yes.
Could you explain that? What did he do?
Cooper Farms owns several semis. He and my brother drove semi whenever it was needed. Ryan drove less frequently than Aaron, but occasionally there would be trips to haul cattle where we'd need more than one truck. So Ryan had his own truck. The farm had trucks, but each of the boys had their own truck that they drove, so yes.
Okay, so you did air quotes there.
I'm sorry.
So I'm going to follow up on that because that doesn't show up on the record. So Ryan he's doing some trucking for
Yep.
Cooper Farms.
Yep.
And you said he has his own truck. Is it my understanding that truck is owned by Cooper?
It's owned by the corporation, yes.
Okay, so it's owned by
Yes.
Cooper
It's owned by
Farms.
the corporation, but yes, since he did trucking for the corporation, he had a truck that we called Ryan's truck, even though it was owned by the corporation.
Do you know what kinds of trips he was taking and what those trips looked like when he was trucking for Cooper Farms?
They would be local trips, rarely, if virtually to say never, overnight, would be hauling cattle, maybe 6 hours a day by the time he picked up a load, delivered it, and back. If it was, maybe he's hauling fertilizer, which might be 2 or 3 trips in a day, but all local, all within the state for the most part.
I'm going to ask you to pull that microphone just a little bit closer to you, so I have a
Sure.
little bit of trouble hearing you.
Okay?
So you said sometimes 6 hours a day he might be out.
Yeah.
We've already talked about the fact that Cooper Farms owned 1846 K Avenue and some other homes. Did Cooper Farms cover other expenses for Ryan and Karina?
Yes, Cooper Farms paid for usually a portion of their work/personal vehicle because it was used for work. He would not have had any expenses related to property taxes, property insurance, utilities. Also, the corporation paid for the cell phone bill.
When you say the corporation paid for cell phone plans, do you know if the corporation paid for a cell phone for Karina Cooper
Yes,
and a separate cell phone plan for Ryan?
yes.
Did Cooper Farms maintain business records associated with those cell phone plans?
Yep.
Could you explain that, please?
Just like any other business and any other bill, monthly statements from U.S. Cellular, for the farm, which included, my dad, my brothers, their spouses' phones.
So you're receiving billing statements from U.S. Cellular. Does that include what I'm going to call detail information? In other words, incoming, outgoing calls,
Yes,
phone numbers that those people are calling?
yes.
Who would have had access to that information if those billing statements are going to Cooper Farms?
The office is in my dad's home, which is across the highway from, just down the highway from both my brothers. So my dad, my brothers, myself. Technically, with U.S. Cellular, Ryan and myself were on the account to be able to access with the company to have access to the records.
Were you ever aware of a time that Ryan was looking at Karina's cell phone records?
Yes.
Could you explain?
After Ryan's death, I was in the office cleaning and came across a piece of paper underneath one of the pieces of office equipment. Pulled it out, and it was a page from one of our U.S. Cellular bills. It was a page that included detail from Karina's call logs, and it had a Post-it note on it with the name Houston D written on it, and a phone number. And then it also had a few tick marks near some specific phone numbers on the bill.
You familiar with your brother's handwriting? Mm-hmm. May I ask you how you're familiar with it?
All the records and bills that he'd bring me and write notes and whatnot in the office.
Judge, may I approach the witness? You may. I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 211. Do you recognize that item?
I do.
What is that?
That's the paper that I found underneath one of the pieces of equipment in the office when I was cleaning.
And there's a Post-it note on there with some handwriting. Is that Ryan Cooper's handwriting?
It is.
Your Honor, at this time, I believe our stipulation of the parties, the state group to admit State's Exhibit 211. Any objection to 211?
No, Your Honor.
All right, State's Exhibit 211 is admitted.
We've heard some testimony in this case that Houston Banker's phone number is 319-330-1616. What is the number written in Ryan Cooper's handwriting there?
330-1616.
And to your knowledge, is that page from the cell phone billing statement for Karina Cooper's account?
Yes, it is.
And you noted there's some tick marks on there. Do you know what those are? Are those-
I don't recognize the number.
It is not that 33016.
It is, no, it is not that number.
Do you know if Karina Cooper was still on a cell phone plan that was paid for by Cooper Farms at the time of Ryan's death?
She was not.
How do you know that?
Ryan came to the office when I was there one day and told me that he wanted to make me.
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Without telling me anything that anyone else said, was there a time based on the business records of Cooper Farms that you stopped, or Cooper Farms stopped paying for Karina's cell phone plan?
The September 2020 bill had her number removed.
Following that date, then, if I understand correctly, Cooper Farms was no longer receiving billing statements including call detail information for Karina Cooper.
Yep, September 9th was the last.
Could you describe just briefly your relationship with, I'm taking you back to 2021, with Ryan and Karina?
I had not lived on the farm or in the that part of the state for a number of years. So, I mean, we were siblings.
we got along fine, but, we didn't hang out on a daily basis. Talked on the phone occasionally, but got together for holidays, did family lake vacations together. It wasn't until my mom passed away that I started doing the work for the farm. And so once we had moved closer at that point, and once I started working with the farm, I would see him weekly at that point.
So you said essentially sometimes the families would vacation together, did you say?
That's correct.
Otherwise, holidays and birthdays. If I understand correctly, previously you were not doing the books for Cooper Farms. You said your mother was doing that.
That's correct.
When did you take over?
When my mom passed away in May of 2020.
So at that point, you're seeing Ryan and Karina on a weekly basis.
Ryan mostly, but yeah, Karina occasionally, yeah.
At any point, did you talk to Karina, or did she ever complain to you about money?
I don't think specifically about money. There were some interests that she would like to have pursued, but I think was limited in, from what she would say, the ability to do that based on whether Ryan was in agreement or not.
So if I understand correctly, there were things that, well, strike that. If you could just explain, you stated that there were some things that she wanted to do that Ryan wasn't in agreement with. Could you explain what that means?
There was say things like remodeling the house or getting a second home. At the time of Ryan's death, he was in the process of having built a larger shop of his own on the property. So through some various conversations, I felt that she maybe wanted a few things done with the house, or different things done that maybe weren't getting done because of the shop that was being built.
Did she express resentment about that?
I can't say that she specifically expressed resentment with using Ryan's name or anything of that sort.
What did she say to you?
Just alluded to the fact that he was not in agreement with wanting to do the remodeling, or didn't think it was important, or also maybe an additional business that she wanted to start, and he wouldn't support that either.
Was it your understanding that because he didn't support it, it wasn't happening?
Yes.
Testified to some knowledge as the executor of the estate to some items owned by Ryan and Karina Cooper that were valued at approximately $200,000. Do you have knowledge of what happened to those items after Ryan's death?
Yes. There was his truck, his farm vehicle, was sold to Cooper Farms. It was valued at $78,000.
And when you say it was sold for $78,000, what did that transaction look like?
Cooper Farms wrote a check to Karina Cooper for $78,000.
With regard to the other items, do you know what happened to those?
There was another pickup truck, we'll call it more of his work truck, that was sold. Her Navigator was also sold, and she invested in a single vehicle after selling those two.
You stated there was some farm equipment. Do you know what happened to that farm equipment?
He owned half of a hay rake and a baler with a friend of his, and that, my understanding, was sold to the other investor.
Are you aware based on your position as executor of the state, the approximate value of these items that were sold in total?
100,000.
Did you talk to Karina or have a relationship with Karina following Ryan's death?
Yep.
Did she ever talk to you about what occurred on the night of Ryan's death?
No.
Did you find that odd?
Yes.
Why?
I guess putting myself into that situation, I would want to share anything I knew about the event to be sure that anything I might know to defend myself and any guilt.
Objection, Your Honor, this is improper opinion, relevance.
Sustained.
Judge, may we approach?
You may. So, Ms. Watt, just putting on the record, are you asking that your objection precede the answer?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
The answer be struck.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the answer that was just given by Ms. Wilson, you're to disregard that. It's stricken from the record and not to consider it for any purpose. With that, go ahead, Mr. Engel.
Thank you, Judge. To your knowledge, following Ryan's death, did Karina Cooper move into another home owned by Cooper Farms?
She did.
Where was that property located?
About a mile from the house that Ryan and Karina lived in prior to his death.
You had stated that there were some businesses or a business that she wanted to open, and Ryan was not supportive of that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did she talk to you about anything else that she wanted to do that she felt Ryan would not allow her to do?
Some minor things like a second pet or, of course, the remodeling, the business, a second lake home. Yeah.
Following Ryan's death, do you know if she did in fact open that business?
She did.
And do you know where she ran that business out of?
She had 2 different storefronts in Traer, and later took it into her own home and sold online.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Ms. Watt, cross-examination.
Thank you. Do you know for certain that this hay rake and baler was sold after Ryan's death?
I do not, but it was used on the farm, and after his death, was not.
So you don't know if Riley Storjohan? You don't know if Riley Storjohan had purchased it. He's the other investor, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So you don't know whether he actually bought out Ryan while Ryan was...
I don't know.
And then you're saying that you valued his truck, his work truck is worth about $80,000, right?
That is correct.
And that you paid that money, of $78,000 specifically to Karina.
That's correct.
But in April, I think this was April, earlier that year, they had done an application to build this shop for Ryan.
Okay.
And so were you aware that there was a $75,000 loan on that car? That truck?
According to the estate documents I have, the loan on that vehicle at the time of his death was $15,000.
So I guess you wouldn't have an answer to why.
I was not part of any of their personal finances.
I guess as part of the estate records, would you be able to have anything that would show how the balance goes from 75,000 down to 15,000 within just a couple months on that truck loan?
I don't. I do know the vehicle was very new when the derecho happened in August of 2020, and it was totaled, and it was replaced a few months later, which was approximately 6 months prior to his death. It's entirely possible his farm grain from the crop was used to make a payment on that truck.
So I understand that the phone record that you have with the sticky note on it, you found that in the office at your dad's house?
Yep, that's where the corporate office is.
But it was just the single piece of paper that you found, not like with the rest of the phone record then?
That is correct.
So I imagine you don't know when that got there.
I don't. Sometime between the date of August 20, which is the date of the invoice, and I would guess it was about August of 2021, 3 months after his death, that I found it.
But we don't know when the sticky note got on top of that piece of paper.
You don't.
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Mr. Engel?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. You're excused.